Oh, cool. How many are not from Colorado?
Rise of the humans.
Have fun. Creativity, strategic thinking, problem solving.
All right, packed house. Hey, everybody. I think we're the last session, right? Before the fun kind of happens after this. I will not go over. I know someone's back there going to give me the 5-minute warning somewhere in the back. So, best practices for Salesforce, ALM, release management, DevOps, they're kind of all the same synonymous term at the end of the day. First, big shout out to our sponsors. It's kind of funny. I am up there as one of the sponsors, so it's a little self-serving. But please come by the booth, talk to us a little bit here. The rest of the sponsors, stop by, talk to them about what they do. So a little bit about me. Classic accidental admin story. Small company in Boulder. We had an old legacy system. They bought Salesforce. Hey, guess what? IT manager, your job now to take over Salesforce. So I am that classic story. 15 years now, though, thinking about it. So admin, dev, BA, SE, enablement. I'm now the SE manager at Prodly. So I wear a Prodly hat. I'm wearing the t-shirt right now as well. But I come out of a long background in the ecosystem here. I've done a lot of these things. I've data loaded my you-know-what off. I've change-setted a lot of stuff as well. So I've been in that role. I've done a lot of that role. It's funny here, if anybody recognizes that middle logo right there. I joined Conga when it was that logo, App Extremes. So it was employee number 9 at Conga. So that was a great unicorn, wonderful story. Still a great company. Love that company. Graduated CU Denver. Apparently they're the Lynx now. Solution engineer at Prodly. I head up that group, the manager group there. First exposure, again, I talked about. Maybe the most ironic piece about this is my own philosophy on ALM, release management. It's not a defined structure. It's a premise, it's a philosophy, it's a product, it's process, it's people. It's all three together. How do we do this the right way? I don't want to stand up here and tell you that there's one specific way to do this. That's not my goal today. I'll go through some scenarios. Anytime you see something in italics, it's kind of the best practices. As I'm going through the slide here, that's how you'll designate those best practice pieces. The ALM wheel. So the whole table of contents really is just this. What does it look like to bring something to market? Salesforce, our customers are our end users. Usually that's sales, could be service, whoever it is you're serving. It really comes down to planning, building, testing, releasing, and monitoring. That's the process. That's the wheel. Taking that one little bit further here. So your change request, who's doing the work? What things are we doing? Who are we assigning these to? What pipelines? What environments do we use? These are all questions to answer. Most of this conversation today is about planning. What works best for you? Taking the time to step back, realize what's going on here. Some of these are best practices, that's the whole point. Development, test early, test often. Release, where do you test? Test again, keep testing. Staging, full testing, production. The very end, how do we monitor? How do we check? How do we make sure the things we've done, they release the right way? Again, testing for the negative. So kind of de-vacuumization, not a word, right? But it is a word. So sandbox seeding is really what that comes down to. It's one of the things Prodly does. It allows us to use those lowest level environments, the ones Salesforce tells us we should be using for these projects, to actually have data. What do you get? Products, price book entries, a few objects in those dev pros. How do you stage that with data that's relevant to the project you're working on? How do you also mask that data? How do you make sure people in those sandboxes don't have access to records they usually wouldn't have in production? Compliance, governance, PII kind of information. So the de-vacuumization process, appreciate your call out on that one. That's a key piece of what we do and how we should be doing things. Delineation, designation, those kind of things we're doing. You'll get the 3 Ds a little bit later too. It's a little bit of term right there to set up, right? That's French for set up or place or stage, put things in their place. Little funny joke, I've been watching a lot of Worst Cooks in America lately, and that's a big term on there for anybody that watches that show. That's what that came from. So how do we plan? Again, I'm not gonna tell you what your release schedule should be, but think through what makes sense for you. My company here, Prodly, we do a 3-week release sprint. That's what we do. It works for us. Change requests versus bugs. That's a big thing. Your customers, the users of Salesforce, are going to ask you for enhancements on your projects. How do we prioritize those? How do we know it's actually a bug? What do we do with those two different work streams that are there? Who, why? So who's going to work on those? Task assignment, relations, assignments, the pre-work work, that devacuumization, right? There's a lot of work up front to kick off a new sprint, a new development that's here. Who's assigned to that? Is that the builder's job? I'm going to use builders for admins, architects, and developers today. At the end of the day, they're all doing work for us. They're building things in Salesforce. Is it their job to go spin up a sandbox, to populate that sandbox? Do we do that for them? How do we track our work? Agile Accelerator, Salesforce Solutions, Remedy Force. Is it a Jira? Is it another solution that's third party? Doesn't really matter as long as you have something that's tracking that. Some, I wouldn't say immature, but less sophisticated possibly. It may be in an Excel file, right? You may have an Excel file with change requests. I've been there. I was a small admin again. I was a one admin shop. The product really doesn't matter here. What's relevant is having a process and some sort of solution to do this management for you. I actually like Agile Accelerator a lot, Salesforce Labs application. I'm a big platform guy. It's on the platform. It's free. Check it out. It's pretty good. It integrates with a lot of stuff on the platform. Make sure the solution is linked to the release management process. When you start promoting work, why you're promoting that work is important. You need to link it back to the releases you're doing. And then if you've got a center of excellence, that bottom paragraph that's up there, center of excellence, steering committee, whatever term you want to use, make sure you have somebody that is either steering the committee or is actually accelerating the center of excellence that's there. Don't let things get stifled by a large group of people. Have somebody steering the steering committee. That's just my own experience. Got too many people in there working on it, it just stalls out. So have somebody have that delegated authority at some point to have that one there. Getting the builders to do the work. The type of work they're doing is critical. Is it a bug? Is it a low impact change? Is it a major enhancement? Again, this just comes down to knowing your own business. What requests are coming in, prioritizing the things that are going to move the business ahead, or fixing the things that are stopping the business right now. The two most important things you can do. Again, general best practices that are in here. If you're following the slider at the bottom, you'll kind of see where we are in the development process. I like this idea, and Phil, you and I have talked about this, I'll call out. The idea of maintaining a bug fix or a hot fix environment. The one you can go make the change in quickly when something's not right and leaving it for just that. Maybe it's a partial. Maybe it's a second full. Maybe it's another dev pro, somewhere where you can just do a quick fix on something versus having those other branches you're going to promote changes through, your CI/CD, your DevOps process going through. Let the builders do what they do best, build. Have them work on the things that are going to move the business forward. I think this audience here is a lot of people doing this. If there's any release managers or anybody else, though, task those people with doing what they should be doing. Build projects, work on things that are in there. Where is that done? Well, should be in a low-level environment. This is the first time I'm going to really tell you where you should do things. Should be in a low-level environment. It should be in an up-to-date environment, and to build environments that contain relevant data and have metadata that matches what you're going to release to. Don't get stuck in a full or a partial that hasn't been refreshed in 6 months. It happens. 9 months, oh, there's a lot of giggling and head nodding going on in here, right? It happens especially in places where you're doing all of your work in there. You can't refresh that full sandbox. There's too much stuff in flight in there. If you push that down to lower environments, you can avoid that and actually refresh that. Monthly, that's probably too much, but at least on a quarterly basis, refresh those top sandboxes. You've got record-driven things. Quick show of hands, how many of your CPQ users are in the room right now? All right, bread and butter of Prodly, they're going to hate me for using that term, but yeah, CPQ is data-driven. Field Service Lightning, billing, Conga technologies. These are record-driven configuration applications. That means if you're not getting that data in those low environments, you can't do any work in there. So whenever that's the case, have a solution that can push those things into those environments. And then test the changes before every promotion. I think every one of my slides has some reference to test. Test the negative, and at the very end, I'll talk about testing kind of more in depth. So release management and testing. Projects are done. We've done our work somewhere. It's time to pick a solution to help move those. Change sets? Yeah. Data loader? Sure. Competitors to Prodly that are out there, a Gearset, a Capato, an AutoRabbit, a Flowsum. It's a handful of them out there. I'm fully aware of the market. It's actually pretty full on the metadata side about options that are out there. DevOps Center. Anybody here using it? Just curious. A couple hands. That's about right. I think it filled a niche in the ecosystem. I think it's not quite all there yet, but I think it works for the intended use case. Solution to promote changes, kind of the equation at the top. The number of changes plus whatever your sprint is, plus the number of builders equals maybe a third-party application. The more complex, the more mature you get, you maybe want to look to a solution to help you that's external, that's beyond just a change set specifically that's here. Not going to tell you go out there. A lot of the systems that exist in the market are going to force you into their box. That's not what this is about. I started by saying I'm not going to tell you how to do things the right way. Just think about the things you can do and plan for those changes. As your team grows, that top bullet point becomes more important. It becomes much more difficult when the team grows 1 to 2 to 3, all of a sudden 6, 7, a dozen people working on things. That maturity level is going to force you to probably take a look. Let's plan on picking up a solution to do it. Access control, who can access what? Pretty simple. Things to think about when you're picking a solution. A work management integration, again, the question of why. Why did this change happen? Who approved this change? Who'd worked on this change? Who released this change? I'm getting a little bit into the auditing, compliance side. Companies that are public now, thinking about going that way, plan for it now, get solutions in place now. You don't want to be at the end and have to go back and pull 2 years worth of data and tell people why you made changes to Salesforce. It becomes a full-time job to do that, and it's a job I don't want anybody to do. To version control or not version control. I can make a case both ways. The more complex, the more you might want a backup. You might want a safety net for something that goes wrong to roll back. CI/CD, the more sophisticated you get, the more automation you want to bring in there. It makes a lot of sense. If you can spend more time building, more time testing, less time deploying, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing for a business to be able to do that. Kind of that italicized piece over there. There's many, many options in the market. I threw out some names before. Don't overcomplicate the process. Don't make it more than you need it to be right now, but take a step back and plan for what it could be in the future, 6 months, a year from now. All the solutions that are out there probably give you an entry point. Don't have to use every single bell and whistle. In fact, most people don't end up using every bell and whistle on the solutions they purchase. That's fine. They don't go and purchase the Lamborghini out there when you're looking for something to just get you down the mile to the grocery store. Make sure it meets where you are now and can grow with you. Can be used by all your builders. Don't go buy a dev-heavy solution for a team of mostly admins. That's unfair to them. So your audience makes a lot of sense. Make sure you get a tool for the audience that's working with the solution. Hopefully it's access from your preferred location. Do you want that to be a third party? Do you want it to be another web portal to log into another set of credentials? Maybe you want it to be native to the application, native to Salesforce. It's up to you, but think about that as another set of credentials. Maybe you've got single sign-on, awesome, it's easy enough, but is it something else you want to manage and maintain? And it's multifaceted. Does it do testing? Does it sandbox seed? Does it promote data? Does it promote metadata? Does it allow you to integrate with your work management platforms? Those questions you need to ask, and then maybe at the bottom, there may not be a single solution that is the right solution. Sometimes you're going to try to make something fit when it doesn't quite do it. Be willing to step back and say, you know what, this may be a two-solution solution. That's okay sometimes. Just make sure it works for you, whatever solutions you end up with. So we're kind of at the bottom, that release to production. The piece that's often forgot, I'm just taking a look here, the testing, the other piece of this too. Testing means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I get that. It starts with the change request. So that very first thing, that planning one here, somebody puts in a change request to ask you to do something new for them. First thing you do is, hey, is there something we have right now that we can leverage that already does this? Testing starts at the change request process. Do you really need this? What value is it going to bring? Push back, be fair, don't stifle the business, but be willing to challenge a little bit up front and see if there's a solution you already have to do something like this. It comes in all shapes and sizes. It should involve the 3 Ps here. So we're talking about people, process, and product, right? The same 3 Ps I talked about up front. Testing is a people, a process, and a product solution. There are testing solutions, there may even be a couple here actually, the sponsors that are on site. The people that put in the request should be brought back in at the end to make sure what was built for them actually fulfills the requirement. That's actually a forgotten piece a lot of times. We push out a change up there. Hey, this is what we want. We released it, and somebody looks back. That's not actually what I was looking for. Again, at the very beginning, test. Ask them questions about what they really need to be there. Don't forget to test the negative. Especially true for these applications, the CPQs, the field service lightnings, the congas, the field services, the billings, the advanced approvals. We put a change out there in the system, in the interrelated nature of all those records, things will happen we didn't expect. Don't just test for the thing you think is gonna happen and should happen. Test for the things that may have been inadvertently touched by some of those record changes. Testing the negative is the most difficult thing because you're looking for something you're not expecting from a change that's here. There are solutions out there that will help you automate some of these things, some unit testing, some UI testing pieces. How much and the type of testing you want to do is up to you. Generally, test early, test often. To use those low-level sandboxes, when you're having your builders do those projects, with data in those, they can actually test some of their changes early, catch some of those things further downstream. Extra testers is always a great thing, not too many, but regressions happen. Take a lesson from Scar. It's an old Lion King reference. Like, I don't know if anyone's gonna get this one. Be prepared, right? So this is a Scar reference, a Lion King reference here. Be prepared, things are gonna go wrong. So what happens when you do? Is it that break fix? Is it that hotfix application? Is it version control where you can back up? Just be prepared when something goes wrong. Rollback strategy again. QA as a function. I don't know how big some of the teams are out here, but QA as a separate function, separate from the people doing the work, is important. The people doing the work will find a way, hey, it worked in my dev environment. I don't know why it doesn't work in full. That happens all the time. It still happens broadly. Trust me, I catch all sorts of stuff at the QA side when it gets to release. But as a function, the people that are removed from the build should be the ones testing it towards the end as well. And then this last piece, another compliance piece. Whoever releases to production should not be the person that did the work, requested the work, maybe even finally tested the work. Should be somebody who is tasked with this. Their responsibility is to get that roll to production. It's a separation of duties. It's a delegation piece. It's an important piece when you get to compliance. Auditing, is it a full-time role? Probably not. Maybe a little expensive, but somebody should be responsible. Somebodies should be responsible for that push at the end. Finally here, monitor reporting, last couple slides. The 3 Ds of compliance, I talked about them for delegation, designation, and dissemination. That's again the idea, the people doing the work should not be the people requesting the work, should not be the people releasing the work. That's the idea right there. Designate, delegate who's gonna do the work, where they're gonna do the work, and then disseminate that work across the team, bring it together in some sort of integrated box where you can start to do better QA testing at the end of the day. In the Salesforce ecosystem, usually relates to metadata. I'm fully aware of that. Usually this is a metadata conversation for CPQ, those data-driven applications. It's not just metadata. It's critical for almost everything on RevCloud. So again, those applications really apply to this. Anything revenue impacting is fair game for auditors, for outside companies to come in. And that's a lot of different things now. That's far-reaching. That's a lot of stuff in Salesforce that is really now being picked up by these external applications. So make sure you've got a solution to report and get them the data they need when they need it as quickly as possible. I'll go right to the bold-faced bullet point over there. Don't give compliance auditors more information than they request. This change was done by this individual for this reason and was released by this person. The answers to the questions they need, don't overcomplicate and give them chances to ask more questions. I love it, it's a great business, it's important, but have a solution that lets you generate a report that answers those questions. This person did this because we asked them to do it. Here's who released it, and here's what changed on those records and those pieces of metadata. That's the key pieces you need for compliance. Shouldn't take more than about 15 minutes. If you don't have a solution to help you on the reporting side, maybe take a look at another one. So it's just one of those things that it's worth having a solution that can do the reporting pieces as well. I kind of followed the very bottom there. You can see the change reporting came to the end. It really is all about planning. I jokingly was telling myself this morning that this was a session that could have been an email, right? Isn't the old joke, this is a meeting that probably could have been an email? I could have outlined everything in about 3 bullet points. Take the time to step away. Plan for your own process that makes sense for you, keeping in mind how you do things is the right for your own business. Always plan for expansion, though. You have to plan for the positive, that things are going to grow. Your team's going to get bigger. You're going to have more complex solutions coming forward. So be willing to step maybe a little bit ahead, take a little bit of a leap of faith, start looking at some of these things earlier than you may need to right now. Back to this, because you always close, right? As a good SE, it's always the tell, show, tell, right? It's an SE thing. So talked about this. Told you I was going to talk about this. Talked about it, and here we are looking at this piece again to kind of close the loop on what we're doing. Plan, build, test, release, monitor. If you look in the middle there, something I glossed over, your users, your IT, your biz ops, your compliance, those are all stakeholders in this process. Salesforce is usually the source of truth for a lot of businesses now. You may have a NetSuite or an ERP talking to that somewhere. Most people are interacting with Salesforce, so bring in these groups on these pieces that are here. They're all involved and all critical. Again, if it's a huge committee, make sure you have somebody with the authority to actually steer that committee. So questions, comments, resources. There's one more slide following this as well. There's a couple Salesforce things I put on here. Is the plan to get these slides? I don't know. I'm talking to the audience out here. I think the plan is to hopefully get these slides out to the group, because this doesn't help anybody, right? A couple of hyperlinks on a slide doesn't help anybody. But developing an app strategy for business. This one is really good. It's talking about an app. But the 5 steps, 6 steps that are on there, this slide, and hopefully everybody can get this, really talks about how you manage change in Salesforce. It's really generic to more than just building an application. It talks about how to best go about building changes on Salesforce in general. There's a couple things from Salesforce. Ben, who was an old Conganeer as well, and I have a good relationship with him. Great guy. Still a lot of fun to work with. So 5 ways to improve release management. And then the Trailhead, right? I got to plug Trailhead. I'm in a Salesforce event. It's a really good, very simple one here, but it talks about the way to do some things right on Salesforce in terms of release management that's here. So that will be kind of about it. That's a little bit about me. You can find me. Hey, thank you very much. So I told you I would try. Yay. All right. I told you I wouldn't go over. So about 5 minutes before, whoever's back there keeping time on me, yeah. A little bit about me. It's one of the neat things about having a very unique name, Jereriah Manning. That is my actual given name. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm at the booth over there at Prodly, right in front of the kind of expo hall as well. And then a little bit about Prodly. Trying not to make this a Prodly presentation is all. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. So thanks again. Appreciate it, everyone.